Yeah, I work for NARA Northwest and I'm the tobacco prevention coordinator. So my relationship with traditional tobacco is that I've been charged with helping to grow traditional tobacco in our traditional medicine and healing garden called the Tixwilney Healing Garden. That's a lot of my experience is providing it out to community for people to have that access and also provide education and have the tobacco plant as the actual focus point of it and really reframing how people look at traditional tobacco, and when they think about tobacco, thinking about a beautiful flower and plant as opposed to thinking about cigarettes or vapes.
My relationship with traditional tobacco, this is the first in a long time that I've heard this kind of conversation. I'm Northern Cheyenne tribal enrolled member from Montana, and my hometown is Lame Deer. I was taught when you need an elder's help, that part of it was to take him some tobacco. And I was not really explained why and what was the meaning behind that teaching. So that's why this conversation and the stories is a first for me to hear.
When I grew up on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation in Montana. And my grandmother was old by the time I was young, but she was the center of our attention. Her house was here and we all lived around her daughters. And she smoked, well, the only time I ever saw her smoke, and I thought she was just smoking, but she smoked a pipe. And now I was thinking about it while they were talking, but it seemed like most of the women smoked pipes. I never saw the men so much smoking pipes, but they would get together and they would sit there and they would smoke their pipes. And we were fascinated by their pipes. And I thought they were just smoking, but I think there was something cultural about it and traditional and sacred. My grandmother was a medicine woman in our community, and she picked her roots and knew everybody came to her when they were sick. And so that's what I know about traditional tobacco. And now I know they all sat in a circle and they smoked their pipes. And that was sacred. I thought they were just smoking. And we were fascinated by that. So one day, my brother and I stole my grandma's pipe. And we smoked it, and we inhaled it, swallowed it, and we got deathly ill, So we never did that again. But I'm really sorry to say, when I was growing up, they just didn't talk about it. They did not share that with us. They would tell stories even and tell us, we would say, well, what did you say? What did Grandma say? And my mom and our aunties would say, oh, you wouldn't understand, And I'm just sorry we miss out on all that. I learned a lot about it at NAYA. When I started going to NAYA 20 years ago, or maybe a little bit more than 20 years ago. And there was a couple of gentlemen there. They would always have tobacco and talk about it and say, oh, we need tobacco. We need to give them tobacco for doing this for us. That's where I started learning about it. But I really start learning about how sacred tobacco is at NAYA.
Being a full-blood Dakota, we're really spiritually connected with it. We use it for our sun dances, for our tobacco ties when we're praying. We're able to put it on the tree, which is really a spiritual dance for our Native people, to pray for people's health, to pray for Mother Earth, to pray for everything we believe spiritually keeps us bounded, as well as when we're at home, we take tobacco ties really, really sacred and spiritual to us because we believe in another spiritual energy and a spiritual connection to where spirits are everywhere, the good, the bad. And so when they're coming into your homes, when you make tobacco ties to let the good spirits know to stay and the bad ones to go away. But a big thing we do that I really love to honor, because being Native, we're really spiritually connected with our elders. They're the reason why we're here, after our ancestors. So when we talk with elders, we're honoring elders. Even when we're giving our Native names, we give it to the elders as a gift. That's something that really sits well with me in my heart, to be able to know that even that's giving, and it's not something that we personally take that to the heart. So that's something that really sits with me. We smoke it, which we don't inhale it, but we breathe it to let them know that the ancestors know that, we're here praying for everyone, and a good way and good journeys.
With traditional tobacco, I remember using it for the first time when I was foraging with my friend. And since we graduated and it was after the pandemic, we wanted to get out into nature more often. I told her about the practices that I was learning while I was in quarantine with my family, and what I've learned from the community when I was hanging out with them after the pandemic was over. When you gather something from outside or take something away from nature or from anything that lives outside of nature, any non-human relatives, you gotta give something back, and usually tobacco is something that's wanted. And I thought that was a good way to connect with my friend, because she also doesn't have a really strong connection with her culture, and she's really trying to connect with her own people, and I want to connect with my own people, so we come together, and then we share stories.
So in my experience, kids are really eager to learn, and as soon as you find something that they're interested in, they really hold on to that. And I think it surprises kids a lot to notice that a tobacco plant is what it is, as opposed to thinking about it in terms of what they see when it comes to commercial tobacco. So a lot of the education we do really focuses on plants and plant medicine and building that relationship back. And we've had great experiences with youth not wanting to quit or being very ambivalent about it, but after spending time in nature and spending time with tobacco as a plant, they're much more open to respecting it as its traditional use, as opposed to using something like scare tactics.
It's important to bring back that knowledge and that wisdom that was given to different tribes, and that I believe that is part of our way of being and living and learning to understand the elements and different plants. And I like the word good medicine, and it's different for different tribes. Because of the colonialism and the censorship and all the genocide over time, a lot of things got lost. And that oppression and assimilation, our identity, the purpose of it was to strip it, kill the native, save the man, and that government philosophy.
I think it's so important that they know the way our people started out, how sacred things were, and tobacco was. To thank somebody, you gave them tobacco, and that was a big thing. And I think if they knew how sacred it was to their people, they might have thought differently about smoking. Because when I was young, we didn't know how sacred it was. We were just always trying to steal a cigarette so we could sneak in the back and smoke, and then we didn't know. And I think if they knew our ways and their tribe's ways, and they would think differently about wanting to smoke and would treat it differently.
When everything became westernized, it became really hard for our native people to be able to grow tobacco on our lands, and where, because it became like like money. Everything became about money for, in the Western world. I was born and raised on a reservation, and coming into this bigger world and seeing how it literally exposed tobacco on such a negative level, where back home we still really traditionally use it, but here the commercial part about it is that they're charging for it, and and they're killing people. I smoked till I was like 27, and so I always seen the good and the bad with it. And when they took the commercial tobacco and it became like a social thing where people are just giving, like I said, when you're able to visit with someone, we give them cigarettes. And so that's how I feel like with the commercial tobacco and the spiritual tobacco. I'm just more connected on the spiritual level now, because knowing what it does to your body and experiencing that pretty much addiction in life of smoking cigarettes wasn't good, and it wasn't for my journey.
Having people around us who were just smoking, it wasn't good for my mental health. It wasn't a good example. And knowing what I do now, I wish I could take my younger self back and just teach her how to use traditional tobacco and tell her what tobacco is supposed to be used for, not to escape. They used smoking and all of the mainstream ways of tobacco as a means of escape, because life was hard on them. And I just want the youth to know that tobacco isn't something to use as a way to escape or as something to harm yourself with, because it's not good for your body. And hopefully when we talk more about traditional tobacco, the kids are able to see the relationship that is spiritually good for them when we talk about tobacco, instead of the physical harm about like mainstream tobacco, if that makes sense.
I'm just really excited that other facilities are also having the ability to grow the traditional tobacco and provide it out to community. And so I would just really love to see them be able to expand that ability and provide that out to the community. And I believe that there's going to be an expansion with their gardens, so having that access and ability to be able to do that moving forward, I just think being able to grow that program is going to be so beneficial.
Because this is my first in the conversation, it really does help me to understand and what I was taught in presenting a gift and offering. And when I was listening to others share, that helps me to understand the purpose of gifting. So when you take something and you give something back. So to have an elder in our tribe, it makes sense now, since I heard the different stories. And so it helps me, it reminds me how important it is, and not to lose our teachings. I think as part of our communities, tribal communities, that it's important to co-create with each other in community building, and it does bring that medicine, that healing, and just to understand that how in history time where it came from, and to hear it from different elders is important.
They ought to have stuff like this, forums like outside, and teaching the kids, and posters everywhere, and handouts everywhere, and yeah, just teaching them about how sacred our tobacco used to be and what it was really used for. I wish I would have known. And I'd be so proud to know all of those traditions. I would be so happy if I knew all of them. I remember some things when I was little, and I knew it was really special. I was young and I saw my first medicine lodge, and I thought, this is something special.
I work in the Native community with youth from the ages from 4 to 24, and born and raised on a reservation. Like I said, our teachings are different. We're just different people in general. And coming into this bigger world, it disturbs me how they don't educate, how they used to educate us back in the day on tobacco use, and not taking that to where it's really the seriousness of it. So being able to be in this Native community, I've been going full force with everything from like harm reduction to spirituality. And so I really think that right now, everyone being disconnected from their culture and not knowing where a lot of stuff comes from anyone's culture. I started engaging the middle school youth on telling them what our tobacco use was for prior to, again, getting westernized, and still being able to find my words, because like I said, born and raised on a reservation, coming into this bigger world, our mindsets and our thoughts are just way different. So I feel like just being able to get into schools and let the kids know that there's tobacco use isn't just a negative manner. It's really a spiritual thing with our Native people. It's sad that the commercial tobacco is here now. However, we got to find the in-between on how to use it and be able to explain it to like another level of an educational level. I would love to see more elders be involved. I would love to see more people of all different tribes be involved, and all indigenous people be involved, all minorities be involved, because it's not just for our Native people. Like I said, everyone has a culture, and to be able to engage everyone and understand everyone and not just on one level is probably the best thing I could pray for NAYA to just get other people involved and other traditions involved.
I would love to go on nature walks with the kids. I don't work with the youth as much as I would, like small ones. My mom works for preschools, and I get jealous sometimes because I want to like hang out with toddlers and hang out with the ones that have a lot of questions. I have two a high school sibling and then the middle school sibling, and they don't ask as many questions about nature as I would like it. So if we could like see NAYA kids go outside in nature and then practice the not most common way that tobacco is used, but like one of the more common ways that tobacco is used as gifting to nature and to our non-human relatives, I think that'd be a wonderful way to bring traditional tobacco in as like a lesson plan.